I want you to imagine traveling to the very location during the French Revolution where the guillotine was erected, to the very spot where thousands of people, including the king, lost their lives to the national razor, as they called it. Perhaps if you went there, you would expect to see a monument to those who lost their lives there, or some remembrance of those lost souls. But instead, you might see a gigantic Ferris wheel. Since you've been studying about France and some significant historical events that happened there, I thought I would talk to you about the city of Paris. I've wanted to visit France for many years, and now especially since my daughter, Sister Mary Clement, lives there. I also had the opportunity in another class that I took to do a lot of research about the city of Paris, and I would like to share some of the facts I found out in that class with you about the City of Light, as it's sometimes referred to. Today I'm going to inform you about 3 significant historical locations in the city of Paris: the Plaza de la Concorde, the Champs-Élysées, and the Arc de Triomphe. I've printed out a map of this region, and it's there for you to refer to. Number 1 on the map shows the location of the Arc de Triomphe, and B indicates the location of the Place de la Concorde. These 2 locations are connected by the famous avenue, the Champs-Élysées. The river along the bottom portion of the map is the Seine River, which flows through Paris and all the way to the English Channel. We'll start with the Place de la Concorde. The Place de la Concorde is the most famous square in Paris, and according to the Columbia Electronic Encyclopedia, the 6th edition, the square was designed for King Louis XV, and a statue of him was erected there. In 1792, the statue was removed and a guillotine took its place. The square was then renamed the Place de la Révolution. It became the site of mass executions. It was here, according to Gertrude von Lefort, in an article in the February 2009 issue of the Angelus magazine, that the Carmelite Sisters of Compiègne were guillotined one by one as they chanted the Veni Creator before a silent crowd. King Louis XVI, Marie Antoinette, and even Robespierre were executed here along with thousands of others. After the Revolution, the name was changed back to the Place de la Concorde, and in 1836, the Egyptian obelisk of Luxor was placed in the center of the square, which was a gift from the Viceroy of Egypt, the reigning monarch at that time, to Louis Philippe. In a direct quote from Michael F. Lerouth in an article from Modern and Contemporary France entitled Themes of the French Year 2000 Celebration, he states, "Civic festivity has been an important pedagogical tool in the hands of the state since the earliest days of the Revolution. Festivity was used to create the impression that the Revolution's victory over the ancient regime was final and to consecrate the beginning of a new era of concord and liberty," end quote. Hence, the La Grande Roue Ferris wheel was erected for the Millennium celebrations in 1999. If you turn northwest as you leave the Place de la Concorde, moving toward the Arc de Triomphe, your course would lead you down the Champs-Élysées, the most famous avenue in the world. The avenue has been traversed by Parisians since the 16th century. I'll quote Karen Wilkin, who writes for the New Criterion magazine in an article she wrote in 1998 about the artists Manet and Monet. She gives a description of the 8th district of Paris where the famous Champs-Élysées avenue is located. Now, for clarification in her description, the French term for district is arrondissement, and the term for street is rue. She says, and I quote, "The 8th arrondissement, wedged between the Seine and the Parc Monceau, traversed by the Champs-Élysées, is chic. Anchored by the Arc de Triomphe at the Étoile at one end and the Place de la Concorde on the other, it embraces as well a substantial lake of length of the Rue de Faubourg Saint-Arnaud. The 8th arrondissement is less predominantly residential than the impenetrable 16th, Paris's equivalent of the Upper East Side, since it includes along its streets of elegant apartments, high-rent office buildings, and such public monuments as those overblown Beaux-Arts exhibition halls. The Grand and Petit Palais, plus the Ministry of the Interior, the embassies of Great Britain and the United States, with its courtier shops and lavish apartment houses, those twin temples to middle-class consumption. Most of what you see in the district reminds you of just as what is meant by bon chic, bon ça, and by the Parisians' often repeated boast, on a une manière ici, Chanel suits, harem ties, and cell phones abound, close quote. When you reach the end of this impressive avenue, you reach the Arc de Triomphe. According to the Columbian Electronic Encyclopedia, 6th edition, the Arc de Triomphe is located in the Place de l'Étoile, which is the intersection where 12 avenues meet. The arc was built to commemorate the victories of Napoleon. It's a colossal structure that stands 164 feet tall and 145 feet wide. It's decorated with sculptures representing Napoleon's victories. In 1920, an anonymous soldier was buried in the arc under the arc to represent the soldiers who died in World War I, and it's known as the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. You can climb to the top of the arc if you're willing to climb the 234 stairs to the top. But if you do, the view is incredible. Now, I have informed you about 3 historical locations in the city of Paris, and hopefully you can better envision some of the places you have read about in history class. Paris is a city rich with historical locations and monuments. Today we've only touched briefly on 3 of these locations. There are many more to learn about there. The Parisians must live with the history of their city every day, and there are reminders that surround them. So if you travel to France and you happen to see a Ferris wheel where you would least expect it, and a chic avenue lined with lights, you can understand that the French government is trying to create an atmosphere of festivity so as to convince us that the history of France and the Revolution was a success. All right, are there any questions? No? Joseph, if you wouldn't mind, you could pan the audience and then we'll begin our presentation of the pictures. And I have pictures of each location for you. Anna?
So the Ferris wheel is exactly where the guillotine was?
I think the obelisk of Luxor is exactly where the guillotine was, but the Ferris wheel is behind it, and you'll see in the pictures they're completely aligned. So I have good pictures of that to show you.